Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my podcast, And Life Goes On. So, this time I decided that I'll make a video and I'll record a podcast for the same thing. So, I want to talk specifically about a certain condition. And the motivation behind this was the fact that a few weeks back I was asking for questions that I could address on my podcast, and surprisingly, the one question that I was asked, which I will elaborate further, like in the upcoming episodes, was that how do you do it? I know it sounds so bad, but yeah, the question, and trust me, like multiple people have asked me this same question, that how are you so happy? How did you achieve the mental state that you have, and how do you do certain things? And also, the underlying question behind these questions is always the fact that how is your life so perfect? I also want a life that's this perfect. And I want to share a few things, and I realize that there are certain struggles that I go through, and I'm sure like many people would be able to relate to it. And if you're going through certain or like these particular things as well, I hope that this video really helps, and or this podcast episode really helps, depending on what and wherever you are listening to whatever and watching whatever. Yeah. Okay. So, firstly, let's talk about why I want to talk about this particular condition and what it is. So, the reason why I want to address this particular condition is because, especially in women, because mostly in women it goes unaddressed as children, and because it goes unaddressed as adults, it manifests or it becomes it results in repetitive suicidal thoughts and self-harm and suicide attempts. So yes, that is my reason why I want to emphasize on this particular condition. So it's called ADD and ADHD. So these are two different conditions which are not very different from each other. So I have ADD with a little bit of hyperactivity, but it's very internalized and it's not like hyperactivity. So I'll explain everything. So ADHD is called Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, and ADD is called Attention Deficit Disorder. Now, what happens in this case is that it's there are different reasons why a person would have ADD or ADHD. It can be hereditary. I mean, in my case, it was hereditary. It is hereditary, and it can be a neurological problem, or it can be because of the environment. So, of course, if it's because of the environment, that it can, and there's always a way out of it. But why it's important to address and understand this particular condition is because this is talking about how a person's brain functions. So most of us, we try to resist this condition and we try to change it. And I'm not condoning any sort of medication. Like medication, of course, it helps in extreme cases. If you have repetitive suicidal thoughts and or anything like that, I would really suggest that yes, sometimes meditation always works, but like medication works as well. So yes, in that case you must seek, in any case, please avoid self-diagnosis. And yeah, so see what happens in ADHD and ADD is that your mind, it gets easily distracted. You get easily distracted, and you might find it difficult to focus. Like as children, focusing in school or listening to instructions is difficult, and following the instructions is very difficult. Not saying that the child is always disobedient, but like following the instructions. Yeah, what were the instructions? I forgot. Being more forgetful is something that happens here. And in school, I would say, like, even problems reading, like, not saying that you would not be able to read, but reading at a normal pace, or at not, there's no normal, I want to change that term. Reading at an average pace becomes difficult. So when it comes to my case, so I just want to discuss my personal case and how it used to has affected my childhood and all my life, and how I deal with it. So in my case, for example, when I was a child, I felt very sleepy. When I would be given instructions, I was so distracted and so not interested in school that I just felt sleepy all the time. Because your mind is functioning so much, and I've always been a daydreamer, and I would daydream a lot, okay? Even in school, I would just slip into some daydream, some sort of, I don't know, parallel universe, and everything. And I just didn't understand why I was doing that. And even when I was alone, I would talk to myself very regularly, like with a lot of passion, and not just talking to myself. I would imagine scenarios. For example, I'm giving interviews and things like that. I'm giving speeches, and I'm just randomly so dedicatedly distracted. And to an outside person, this might seem like I'm not attentive, but honestly, my attention is focused somewhere else. Okay. So another thing that would happen was that that still happens is that, for example, if I have to do something, suddenly at the last moment I would not want to do that particular thing and want to do completely different, like a thing that's completely different. Okay. So for example, if I know I have to record a video and maybe I can go to the bank tomorrow, and then as soon as I sit to record the video, no, maybe I'm bored and I don't want to record the video, I instead want to go to the bank. So this feeling of feeling bored all the time, no, I'm bored again, that is also another symptom that I've personally faced. Some of the other symptoms were that the fact that my geography was very bad. I could not remember dates and numbers. I have this innate ability to remember people, to remember everyone's sun sign. And so I remember like birthdays, but otherwise like remembering history facts and even like maps, I'm so bad at it. If you give me like the world map, I cannot spot the countries. I'm just like, I can't do that. Even like remembering facts and figures and doing mental mathematics. So I'm very good with logic, but I do struggle with calculations. For example, if somebody would suddenly ask me to divide something by 4, it takes me like a long time. And, like with me and my sister, it happens like, oh God, again she's stuck in that rut where she's unable to do the calculation, and I really am unable to do that. And it seems like, how is that possible? But yeah, it's something that I really struggled with. As a child, I could not remember the tables, and I never learned them, never ever. But I understood how to multiply, and I understood the logic behind it. So anytime the teacher would ask me to write the table, I would usually like immediately calculate, and I would understand the concept of multiplication. But I couldn't do like, I couldn't remember the tables. Okay, so being forgetful, absent-minded, daydreaming, and yes, my geography, not just in terms of like remembering maps, but even in terms of remembering ways, I don't know where to go from where. For example, if you ask me to drive, the reason why I don't drive is like I can drive, but I don't drive very often, is because I don't know any way out of any place, and I find it very difficult to follow the GPS. Like, I don't know if this, like, if I should turn right now, or like maybe it comes later, and then focusing on the GPS and then on the like road and the traffic, it's just a lot of work. And because in between, of course, I do get distracted very easily. So yeah, so this is how I used to struggle with ADD. I wouldn't use the term hyperactivity as much. I wouldn't, because it was very internalized, I think, my hyperactivity, and that's what I want to focus on. It's more of the attention deficiency that I want to focus on. So what would happen was that I found it like, how I used to see children would, like, finish the entire syllabus or the course in a day or two. I've never been able to do that, because I find it so hard to sit for that long to read something. I find it's very difficult for me to finish reading books very quickly. So I take a lot of time, a long time, to finish one book, even if it's a very thin book. Sometimes I read just 2 sentences and I'm distracted. I'm somewhere else. Sometimes I would read 4 pages and then I'm distracted. Most of the time it's like 1 paragraph. Even if it's a book that I really like to read, still I'm distracted. But yeah, so but it's not like it was in every case. I think if I was really interested in something, I think that has been a very big motivational force, and that makes me hyper focused. So this is another thing that happens with people who have a brain that functions this way. Yeah, and because of this, I've had anxiety and depression and suicidal thoughts all my life. Even as a child, I had recurring suicidal thoughts, and I would cover the self-harm thoughts in maybe another episode or another video. Yeah, but this is another thing that I have struggled majorly with. And of course, performance anxiety. When I had to go up on stage, my legs would be trembling and shaking like this every single time. I don't remember, like, it's very recent, and I think after I became spiritual and I started healing myself and I've understood myself better, is when I'm not nervous talking on camera, or if given a mic, talking on stage. But otherwise I would always tremble like that, and my heart would palpitate at a very fast rate, and yeah. So these are certain things that I faced. Another thing is that because I knew that I couldn't focus a lot, so I made sure that I don't focus. Like, I don't force myself to focus for 1 hour on a particular subject when it comes to learning or studying something. Yeah. So these are the certain things how I have struggled, and yeah. So I think it is so it's just like so undiagnosed, to the point that I attempted suicide, like most of you know. I hope, because I share my story openly. Last year in the month of July, and that's, people think that it's because of this reason and that reason, or this reason and that reason, but suicidal attempts and self-harm was always a part of my life, even as a child. And when it happened, I now realize that it wasn't just because I have anxiety, but I have anxiety and depression because of an entirely different condition that nobody ever even spoke about, and which is very shocking to me personally. So now I want to focus on why with women it's more needed to be spoken about and to be focused on. So, like I said, ADHD is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Most of the symptoms in ADHD and most of the sadly most of the doctors and therapists the way they diagnose ADHD is with the hyperactive symptoms, and these statistically the hyperactivity part of ADHD is more common in boys. So the symptoms of ADHD were primarily structured on how boys react to it, or how boys with this condition they behave. So in my condition, and in I think in the with most girls, it's also a huge level of the societal pressure that we have, that girls are not hyperactive. It's not considered to be nice, and so we are taught and brought up in a way that we need to be very calm and patient and good listeners. So it becomes a little different in girls. For example, girls would talk a lot, like I talk a lot, and or interrupt conversations, and they do it unintentionally. Okay. And yeah, and like other things that I mentioned, like anxiety and depression. I'm not going to get into the details of the types of ADHD and ADD because there are different types and you can read about them on the internet. Yeah, so the point is that understanding a mental condition is very important so that you learn how to live with it, how to cope with it, how to be with it, and how to make complete use of it. So the other reason why my condition, I think, went unattended and undiagnosed was because of the fact that I was a good student and I always had good grades, and I have always sort of like excelled in my studies and in my academics, and which is sadly most school, like when children are in school or colleges, we think that only the children who are not good in studies, they should be paid attention to. I'm not saying like the others, they don't get attention, but this is what happened in my case personally. I had anxiety, panic attacks, and I would get like nausea and everything, as a child, and even in college, to the point that I used to faint, and I was even hospitalized for a long time for my panic attacks and anxiety, and severe anxiety. But yeah, so but the fact that I was scoring good grades, people make it very surface level, and they do not think that there's something that's different in the brain. Which I believe is a curse and a boom, both is a, because it is a blessing as well. It is a blessing in disguise because I get to daydream so much, and I get to think about theories and I know so many other things. So what I personally do is that I know that my attention span is limited. Okay, I cannot focus on a particular subject or a particular thing for a very long time, or else I get bored or just distracted. So I would set a timer for like say 20 minutes, and I would study for 20 minutes, get up and take a break, walk around for 15 minutes. This is how I have studied all my life. And because I knew that I cannot study more than some particular hours in my day, or in the day, for example, after 9 p.m., I just cannot focus, and I have to watch something on, like when I was in college, when I was studying, this is what I used to do. I had to watch Netflix or something. And so I would just turn the books away, and so I knew that I needed a long time to prepare for exams, so I would start preparing much before most students would begin to prepare for their exams. And This is one thing that I did. The other things that have transformed my life completely are my spiritual practices and my healing modalities. Now, I will relate ADD and ADHD with spirituality. So, spiritually speaking, if you are a daydreamer or if you slip into daydreaming, you're also a master manifester, because you can manifest literally anything, because the world is your oyster. You can think of anything, and your mind goes to places and an imagination, creating things in your head where most people's brains, they don't go there, okay? But your brain is privileged enough to go there. Okay, so this is, I think, the biggest blessing spiritually. The other thing is the energy medicine. And the fact that I understood that I'm also an empath. Okay, so this is a completely different take on this condition. Because I understand that my thoughts and my energy, I'm so sensitive that I pick up on other people's emotions. I'm such an empath. I can put myself into literally any person's shoes, and I could see their perspective. And so my energy always gets drained very easily. It's very easy for anyone to come and drain my energy, and when it's drained, if I don't have strong boundaries, if I don't have strong practices to keep my personal vibe high, then I will get drained and or get affected by the negative circumstances around me very easily. And because of that, I get hyperactive and I feel depressed and I feel anxious. The other thing that I've realized is that focusing on things that I really like, it works. For example, now that I've quit my old profession, where I was researching, and I was good at it. Okay, I was really good at what I used to do, but now that I'm out of it, I realize that it was a huge struggle. Okay, I realized how much pain I was putting myself into. Because every day I had to read so many research papers, and I wasn't interested in reading those research papers just to get good grades, and I did not see that as a good enough reason. So yeah, so focusing on things that I'm really interested in. Another thing that I personally do is mindfulness. So meditation, again, spirituality, meditation, it helps, because what happens with spirituality and meditation is the fact that you get to know who you are. You get to know yourself, or in other terms, your soul, or what your soul is here to do. And you develop this self-acceptance and sort of self-love for yourself, that you would know your needs, you would know your boundaries, you would know what you like, what you don't like, because you get into this habit of sitting with your mind, sitting with your thoughts, facing your thoughts, and not suppressing your emotions, not trying to put them under the rug and maybe for a later day or something like that, and then till the time it becomes into a condition that's a physical condition or a mental condition, that you don't address your emotions, the underlying things. So meditation really helps you face things, and because you're so fearless in your mind that you're able to face everything that goes on here, you're really able to face everything that comes up in the real world. Yeah, so this is all that I have, and I hope that this was a little bit helpful and in some possible way. Yeah, and let me know if there's something else that you would like me to talk about, or if you'd like to have more details on this topic. Yeah, and life goes on. Bye bye. Take care.